Today I wanted to do a video about what supplies I currently use for my art. I am mostly self-taught, so this will be about my experience with these supplies and what I've learned so far. So first up are watercolor pencils. I don't use these as much as I used to, but I highly recommend them if you like watercolor and don't want to buy an expensive paint set to start out. They are super easy to use. You just draw the color on the paper where you want it, and then you add a little bit of water and blend it until it looks the way you want it to. I've also read that you can use them wet like this, but I don't ever really use them that way. It doesn't really work for my art style. So you can easily get a nice watercolor effect with these. Much like real watercolors, the pigments will get lighter as you add more water. If you wanted to feel more like traditional watercolors, you could also use them to create a palette by adding a lot of pigment in one area, perhaps on a separate page, and then adding water and transferring that pigment to wherever you want it to be, much like a real watercolor palette. And here are some examples of pieces I did using only watercolor pencils. After I got comfortable with watercolor pencils, I upgraded to these tube watercolors by Winsor & Newton. I'd say this was definitely my first nice watercolor set. It was slightly intimidating after working with the watercolor pencils for so long. Since there are only 6 colors, I found this watercolor palette that fits all 6, and I just let it dry out and then re-wet it again when I'm ready to paint. These are nice because I could achieve a higher contrast much faster than I could with the pencils, which you really have to build up if you want more saturated or dark colors. And here are some pieces that I made using this particular watercolor set. And finally, in December of 2018, I got this really nice watercolor palette as a gift. It's a Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolor set of 24 colors. I like it a lot and I feel like I'm still learning about each color. It's so nice to have more options for colors and to not have to mix for every single color like I did with the set of 6. Although I do definitely still customize my colors a lot. Just about all of the pieces up on this channel were done with this particular watercolor set. Here are some examples. So for water, I tend to use mason jars and this little candle holder. I always use the smaller jar for cleaning my brushes and the big jar for clean water, so that way I'm less likely to get them confused. And I use this washcloth instead of paper towels for adjusting the amount of water that's on my brush. The brushes that I use most are these. This Winsor & Newton one came with my most recent set of paints, and I got these in a set by Artist Loft. I like this one for covering big areas of paint and adding extra water, and this one also came with that set, and it's super nice for backgrounds. I like the texture that it creates. This one is one I used before I got all of these, and I just like the wooden handle. I think it's really cute. I used to use this Pentel brush pen for lots of things. It came pre-filled with ink, but now it's running out, and I haven't figured out what to refill it with yet, but I like it a lot. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of these Sakura Pigma micron pens. I know traditionally watercolor doesn't use ink outlines, but I really like the way it looks, so that's what I'm doing for right now. I also found out they make sepia toned ones, and I've been using those almost exclusively for the last few months. I like that there's a brush pen and a graphic marker that I didn't get with my set of black ones. I feel like they blend really nicely with the watercolor and they're a little more subtle. I also sometimes use this white gel pen to add highlights and correct small mistakes. It's a Uniball Sigma. It's really nice. It works on top of watercolor just fine, but you have to go slow or the ink kind of skips a little. For sketching, I use whatever pencils I happen to have around. Currently I use these by Bic. I haven't had to refill them yet. They're pretty nice. For erasing my sketches, I have a regular eraser and a kneaded eraser, which is nice for erasing kind of lightly. I also have these retractable eraser pen things, which I forgot about until I made this video. The paper I currently use is Canson XL watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds cold press. I've tried a few different types and brands, and I find this one's just a really good value for the price. I buy it in big pads and cut them into the size that I need them to be. I also have this super nice Moleskine brand watercolor journal that I got as a gift. I find fancy sketchbooks and art journals to be a little bit intimidating. They feel a little more permanent somehow, so I tend to leave them unfinished or kind of sketchy if I don't like how something turned out. But I'm trying to finish this one with lots of flowers and little things, so we'll see how I do. This is the paper cutter I used. I keep my scraps and use them to test colors. Like I said, I cut my paper into whatever size I need it to be. I have this cute little jar where I keep kosher salt, which is to make those cool feathery watercolor effects. And some regular old masking tape for getting those sharp edges. Some people use washi tape, which looks really cool, but I am way too poor for that at the moment. And finally, my super old Conair hairdryer. This is what I use when I'm feeling impatient and want something to dry a little faster. Not really an art supply, but it's also very, very useful. And that's it. I hope this was helpful, or at least interesting. If you have questions about anything I've mentioned, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll answer as quick as I can. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want, and thanks for watching. Bye!